Hello, everyone, and welcome to Read the Book First. Before this episode gets started, I just wanted to take a second and give y'all some content warnings. My friend Sam and I are discussing Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This book discusses a lot of difficult topic matters, so make sure you're checking your content warnings. But we will be discussing drug abuse, physical relationship abuse, sexual assault, other assault, depression, PTSD, and other mental health issues. So just be aware of that as you go into the episode. But this is a very excellent episode about one of my favorite books. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome, everyone, to Read the Book First. This week, I have my wonderful friend Sam here to talk about Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. And I'm so excited. Oh my goodness. So first off, I think I know the answer, but you've read this book before, right?
I read it when I was a freshman in high school.
Oh, wow. You read it way before I did.
Yeah.
I also read it, but I didn't read it till I think like summer 2012 when the movie was coming out.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, early high school Janessa was still just going through Narnia shit. And I don't know how else to describe it, but
Classics.
yeah.
The younger adult classics.
Yes. But I loved going back into this so much. It just was such a nostalgic bomb the whole time. I had a blast. I want to do a brief little synopsis without spoilers. I'm going to try. I try every week or every episode, and sometimes they're good, and sometimes the summaries are bad. This is a epistolary novel about a bunch of letters from an anonymous person who we end up calling Charlie about his freshman year of high school and his many, many struggles and the struggles he sees of others. And that's just kind of a quick summary without spoilers, I think.
I would say.
It is so good. Immediately, the first entry, I
Yeah.
squealed reading it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it was I believe I've read the book twice. Like I think
Mhm.
that I read it when I was a freshman, and then I believe that I still had a copy, or bought myself a copy about when the movie came out so that I could like read it again. And
Mhm.
you say like I wasn't really reading books like that then. I mean, I was reading like uglies and stuff. Like my mom,
Yes, I love the Uglies
yeah, my
books.
mom would like leave me and oh my gosh. We had Barnes and Noble, and then I'm trying to think of one of the big
Borders.
Borders. That's what it was. We went to Borders a lot. Yeah, 'cause
Uh,
my mom would always get us like Seattle's best coffee or whatever.
mhm.
Yeah, so we
Mhm.
do that. But in my freshman year of high school, I had this person who sat around me, and they were reading lots of books that seemed interesting, and so they lent me their copy for it. And we'll talk about it later, but it actually was a huge formative year for me to like this book came out at the perfect time, pretty much.
Yeah, I read it summer 2012. I was in the process of going from Alaska to Montana for my freshman year of college, and I read it. Absolutely, I read this because our friend Tori was probably posting constantly on Tumblr
Me too.
about it.
Yeah.
That's guarantee. That's the reason why I read this. Guarantee. But I remember reading it on my Kindle at my grandparents' house, and I remember not getting it. Like I enjoyed it for sure for the first time I read it, but like high school Janessa, like the things my friends and I went through, I wouldn't say weren't the things that Charlie and all the people around him go through, but like definitely I didn't perceive a lot of that stuff. So I think I couldn't relate to Charlie when I was 18, which I think is kind of ironic because this is a YA book written
Yeah.
for kids or teenagers.
Yeah.
But then me as a 30-year-old rereading this, I was like, oh shit, like this is hitting. I don't know, like reasons why, some reasons I don't know why, and just
I'm so glad I'm reading it as a 30-year-old because there's things and notes that I put in here that I'm literally like adding like 4 question marks of like I didn't understand what this was when I read
mm-hmm.
this book, and I barely like remember it, or like I honestly like we'll talk about it later, but like the Fountainhead,
Yeah,
completely forgot about that. I was
yeah,
laughing. I have so many notes of just like what? Like Anne Rand, like who gave
yeah,
why? So
yes.
yeah.
It's this book throughout the thing. So we'll talk, like I have lists of things, but there's a lot of pop culture within this book.
Mhm.
The writing is so not like connected to a time frame and the plot isn't, but all the pop culture keeps like shocking you. You're like, oh yeah, this is in 99, turn of the century. Like
Yeah.
it keeps it and it kind of like shocks you, but I enjoyed it. But the writing, I think, is just so timeless.
It is.
Um
I didn't remember that it was published in 1999. I thought it was
yeah,
later on. So hearing that this was like when we were in kindergarten,
right.
like strange because I related to it so much at this certain point in my life. And then of
Mhm.
course now like I still see things that I felt
Mhm.
back then. Yeah.
Yeah. So Charlie's first entry, his first, well, letter. So these are all letters to dear friend. And they always end with love always, Charlie. At the first entry kind of just describes why he's writing these letters. He writes these letters because someone told him that this person wouldn't sleep with that guy at a party. So then he's like, oh, you're trustworthy. It's kind of a thing. So there's this weird part as like the audience member getting these letters, but also knowing that someone else is, but not knowing who that someone else is. It's just a lot of mystery when that part at the beginning, but you kind of get used to it. But it starts out, he's about to enter his freshman year of high school, and he kind of gives a quick summary of his last year of middle school. His like close friend Michael ended up committing suicide, and that just kind of spiraled within a lot of other stuff in his life, but you don't know much about him at this point. We do get a rundown of his family. He has an older brother who's about to go play football at Penn State. He has a sister who's going to be a senior who's very smart, but always has boy problems. And then his parents have an interesting relationship. His mom's always silent, but like when she does talk, everyone listens immediately. And then we briefly know that his Aunt Helen lived with them for a few years before she died. So like it's just a really quick intro. There's like not really an exposition, I would say, of this book because the book is so character driven, not really plot. Like a lot of the plot happens in the last 30 pages.
Honestly, I was like, when is this thing revealed? Like,
Hmm.
completely forgot that even like the main things are actually like in the epilogue. I was like, oh my,
Yeah.
like my time
It's
of
just,
how this ended is completely skewed than what I thought it was.
yeah. This is one of those books where I've seen the movie adaptation more than I read the book. And so like I've seen the movie probably 4 or 5 times. Because it was a movie I forced my friends to watch all the
Oh, I
time.
love that.
And but so it took me a little bit to like separate what I was reading from the movie, but not terribly long. I annotated this book so much. I have so many little tabbies. There's just such so many good quotes in this book.
Yeah, I saw your post, like you put it like either Snapchat or it was like
Mhm.
a or B-roll or something, and
Yeah.
saw your tab notes, and I had been writing some notes. I actually did something different for reading this book. So, for people who don't know me, I typically only read audiobooks. Like I'm
Mhm.
not very good with a physical medium. I used to be, and then I was a political science and philosophy double major, and reading so many books just really ruined my reading that I love.
Uh-huh.
And then now that I'm older, I'm so into it. And so I had heard from our friend Tori, who we already mentioned, that one of Tori and I's mutual friends actually listens to audiobooks and reads along. And
Mhm.
I'd never done that before. So I was like, yeah, I mean, I wanted to have a physical copy so that
Yeah.
I could write into it and stuff. And so I did that. And then I remembered I had a huge pack of bookmarks from a stationery kit I bought. So
That's awesome.
I was like, this is my version of the little post-its that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Pro tip, just get a normal like post-it note and then cut it up. And that way you don't have to buy the expensive small ones. That's what
Yeah,
I
I
do.
used to have some really cute tabby ones. There's somewhere in something I've
Yeah.
probably
I
unpacked.
love listening to an audiobook while reading along. It's I
I,
love doing that, especially since I also am an audiobook girly. For the podcast books, I do tend to read them physically because then that way I have to slow down and think about it a bit more. Not that I don't like doing that with my audiobooks, but it's easier for my brain that way. Um, so I tend to do that. In the first entry, he's writing to this person, the audience slash whoever receives the letters, and it's just I like that a lot. I think it sums up Charlie in general in the book. It says, "I want you to know that I am both happy and sad, and I'm trying to figure out how that could be."
highlighted that one first. Yeah,
It's
right
just
from the bat, you know?
I love this. I like briefly was on Reddit looking at people's thoughts on this book,
Mhm.
and someone was like, "What 15-year-old has such good writing style?" Da 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 da. And I was like, "This is Charlie is like immediately you know that Charlie is an advance for his age. Like they talk about it. We find out later that he was held back a year, so he
Yeah.
was 15 going into his freshman year. So like, but a 15-year-old could for sure write this. Like,
Oh yeah, it's letter
yeah.
format, and he's very clearly said that these are his thoughts on paper,
Hmm.
and that this is like we are perceiving that this is not getting out anywhere, and that actually becomes like a thing that's said towards the end by main character towards him.
Hmm.
So I think it's totally makes sense that this is
Absolutely.
15-year-old who's been very isolated, uh,
Hmm.
to be able to write his thoughts into one place.
Yeah, absolutely. As he's going to school, he's having a hard time. He has no friends because his one close friend um is has died, and then the like mutual kind of friend that he had through Michael doesn't talk to him and like has like reinvented herself probably to deal with her own trauma, but also
Yeah.
because they're freshmen in high school. Like I think reading if I were to read this as a freshman in high school, I would have like again, when I read this when I was 18, I didn't understand, but now that I'm 30 and I also was a teacher, I'm like, oh yeah, none of these kids know who they are. And that's fine. Like they're all going through it. They'll
Yeah.
get there, you know what I mean? But I just immediately I just felt so I just wanted to give Charlie a hug immediately. I was like,
Yeah.
it's going to be okay, bud.
And
It'll
it was
be
definitely a sentence that resonated with me when I read it that we'll talk about a little bit later of like why I found out that resonates in my adult life.
the first like 3 or 4 entries. He's not talking to anyone. He tried to talk to his sister in the hallway, but she ignored him. The only like real person that's talked to him so far is his English teacher who asked him to call him Bill,
Yeah.
which
Wears a suit. Like that detail, I was like, I never went to a school that made a person wear a suit.
mm-mm,
Yeah.
absolutely not. No, they don't have the funding for
Maybe
that.
it's he's from an Ivy League. I don't know.
Yeah. But Bill is like, hey, you're very smart. I can tell this already. I'm going to give you extra books to do essays with and to like, try to encourage you to branch out. And so throughout the whole book, Charlie is reading like a bunch of like classic literature, but other books as well. The first one being The Side of Paradise by F. Scott Fitzgerald, which I read because of this book. Because I had recently read The Great Gatsby before reading this when I was 18. And I
Okay.
was like, I read This Side of Paradise. Boring ass book, dude. Like the only good thing about it is the flapper scene because he like quote unquote invented the flappers, which is like not really true. But like anyways, I'll give my full opinions on the list of all the books that are mentioned throughout the book later. Stay
Yeah.
tuned for that. But then Charlie's like, I would really like to have a friend again. Like he's just going through it. We find out a bit about his sister. His sister is dating this guy, and she's like described as like yelling at this boy
Meet
constantly.
the boys. I
Yeah,
loved that.
like beating them up. But then I don't think it's is it this at the early part of the book
Um,
that he hits her?
yes, we find out
Ooh.
that there's some issues.
Yeah, she's like stand up to bullies constantly, and then he ends up hitting her. And then Charlie's like, I guess she was his bully, and
Hmm.
then yeah, it's just so her sister is also going through it, but Charlie's just like observing it constantly. As the title says, perks of being a wallflower. Like we haven't got there yet, but Charlie's just always observing everyone.
Hmm.
um we meet the character who originally is called Nothing. He's a senior in Charlie's shop class that apparently when kids are calling him nothing, he said, or saying that you're nothing to this kid. He's like, just call me nothing. So people called him that. His real name is Patrick. And it's like the first person who was friendly towards Charlie at the beginning of the book.
I have to ask, did you
Yes.
shop class at
Shop
school?
class.
Yeah, did
We
you?
there was shop class in my middle school and high school. I did not take it.
Middle school?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, okay. Well, to be fair, I didn't go to that middle school. I went to a dumb private school. I was essentially homeschooled in middle school. But all my friends that went to the public middle school had shop class where they all had to take a semester of that or art.
Interesting.
And then, yeah, in high school, there was shop and auto, but I didn't take those.
I went my rural school in Nebraska, where I originally grew up, had shop class. So
Mm-hmm.
I always had some, like I was like, oh, I'm familiar with that. I've seen
Yeah.
that. My
Yeah.
actual high school, we did not have shop class.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why.
I wish I would have taken shop, honestly. Because I did a lot of I helped my dad a lot growing up. Like he'd be like, come hold this while I saw this. And I'd be like,
At the
okay.
end of, yeah, I was looking for like an elective at the end, like during my senior year, because they got rid of double early dismissal. It used to be if you had so many credits, you can get the last 2 periods of school off. And I really wanted that for my senior year. And they're like, just kidding. You have to actually like put things in there and like you only get one early dismissal. And I hated it. And I would have done shop. That would have been way better for me.
We get some like memories slowly throughout the book from Charlie. And one of the ones I enjoyed the most is they were, as a family, the only thing that they did together besides dinner was watch MASH.
Yeah.
Um, and during the season finale of MASH at the very end, his dad, when they're watching as a family, his dad goes to the kitchen to quote, make a sandwich. Charlie goes in there to either watch him or get some food or something and sees his dad crying. And the only time he's seen his dad cry, and then his dad's like, this is our little secret, okay, champ. And it's like a really important moment for Charlie. But that's the like kind of relationship he has with his dad, where his dad's like just the classic, man of the household kind
Yeah.
of business, no emotions type thing. But it's also the first time in the book that we hear the phrase that someone has told Charlie, this is our little secret. And that just keeps coming up and up. And that is something I did not remember from the first time I read it. But as I was reading this, I was like, every time I was like, what? It's the same phrase, same phrase. And it's like the inklings to the book towards the end. And I just thought, that's just so well written.
Yeah. And there's one thing that I definitely like, there's way more scenes and related things about later, but this book actually, I did not remember how central crying is to the story. And so you actually get when the mother and the father, like, and Charlie had been crying and stuff, you
Mm-hmm.
see different things at the beginning. And so
Mm-hmm.
you read this book, like, there's like, I have theories, like I said, but I thought it was very interesting to like also have that right at the jump.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. As Charlie's going through school, he goes to a football game to like be out of the house. But he goes to the football game and he sees Patrick, the guy from shop class. And he goes over and says hi. Patrick says hi, and with him is a girl named Sam. And immediately Charlie has a crush on her. And the way he talks about his feelings towards Sam, even at the very beginning, it's like it's not like insta love, but I was worried that rereading this, Sam was going to be like more manic pixie dream girl, but I felt like it wasn't that manic pixie dream girl. It was more just like classic freshman having a crush on a senior girl. Like,
Oh yeah, it was puppy love than anything.
yes.
Like, I like think that it's you when we were like, this wasn't written by like this couldn't be written by like a teenager or whatever. Like
Hmm.
this is what I think of
Yes.
the evolution of his feelings for Sam and how immediately it was like, oh, I've been struck in the face by like a pretty girl because he's already
Hmm.
described that he had a friend who has like purity blossomed, air quotes here.
Yeah.
And he never makes a comment besides what she uses her looks for.
Hmm.
And so this is like the first time we actually see him describing like someone he thinks is pretty or like he's a, like
Hmm.
you almost because you actually before this he has like some comment about like commercials and like
Yeah.
ads and stuff that makes you
Yeah.
think, what do you really think about like real life girls?
Hmm.
Oh, and so yeah, I think this is like the start when he's initially like, oh, like puppy, like love struck.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Question for you.
Yeah.
Um, because your name is Sam
Yeah.
and the character, I've never read a book that had my name.
Yours is a little bit more unique.
It is true. Shout out mom and dad. But
Yeah.
also, I'm always curious. Is it weird to see your name and a character?
I liked it actually. I
I
do.
mean,
Yeah, I liked it. I also there are things about Sam that I saw in myself.
hmm.
And so I like was very pro it, which is why when we talk about the movie, I'm gonna have some thoughts about the casting of Sam.
Okay,
That's what to say about that
I was
one.
curious. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I've always wondered that of like people whose names are in movies. But I mean, Sam in the book, and like also you, but Sam in the book is great in general.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool
Yeah,
girl.
absolutely. But this is so Charlie is, interacting with Sam and Patrick, who are really into the game for various reasons. And it's the first time that we see Charlie talking to people that aren't his family members or his teacher Bill. And he's branching out. He's has that puppy love. And he's just so excited to have friends again. After the football game, I believe Charlie goes with them to the big boy. Is that what they
Yeah.
call it?
Yeah.
Um, is that it? I mean, I know it's like a 7-Eleven gas station, whatever. Did you all have those in your area?
I thought it's a real restaurant that used to happen, but
I've never seen one in real life, but I also like grew up on an island, you know?
yeah, no, and like I initially grew up in rural Nebraska, you know,
Mhm.
10 to 300. We didn't have a ton of those laying around, but I, for some reason, believe that I have seen a statue from like an old big boy.
Yeah.
Um, but I really can't place the memory, which is probably means that it was like one of the weirder small like travels I had when I was younger and when my parents were together and they would like drive us to like more outdoorsy stuff. Like
Hmm.
that's I went to go to, I was in Montana as a kid and Wyoming,
Hmm.
South Dakota, and like parts of Colorado, and we like stepped into Utah. Like people are
Yeah.
like, yeah, which is funny because most of those things actually don't have like a lot of things to see, but like
Yeah.
my parents, that's what that's what they did. And so it actually was like, I think maybe that's where that's from. Otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah. I was just curious because I've never seen one, but maybe
Yeah.
just because they're out of business. Maybe I'll Google it later just to
I
get a
mean, the thing I
picture.
knew, weirdly enough, the one thing that I think maybe some people remember or know Big Boy from is from the Austin Powers movies. Do you
I've
remember?
never seen those.
Oh my God. This is such a bad reference, basically. But in one of the movies, there involves a big boy statue that gets like sent into space, I think. It's
Mm,
elaborate. I'm sure, has Isaac seen these movies? He can
I'm
explain.
sure. I'm sure he has.
Yeah, he can explain it to you. I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, James Bond a book, it's based off of James Bond.
That's true. Well, eventually my goal is to have enough like listeners I can do a Patreon. We can just watch random movies that don't have
I
books.
I told my movie club about this, and they kind of were like, we want to do something like this. And I
Yeah.
was like, I mean, I can refer you to my friend if they actually have suggestions. They're like, we want to do like 1984, like we want to do Clockwork Orange, like this is what we would do. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the stuff that Janessa is exactly
I
picking.
haven't
But
like
I'll let her know.
I pick books based off what my friends want to read because it's like an excuse for me to force my friends to read books with me. And then like it turns into more things. You know what I mean? Like there are a
Yeah.
few that I'm like, okay, we're gonna read this, but like usually like with you, I was like, here's a list of books. Which
Yeah, I know this
one? You
one
know?
you were like, do you want to do this? And I was like, oh, Perks of Being a Wallflower would be really great because when we became friends,
Mm-hmm.
we became friends online through Tumblr.
Mm-hmm.
I had someone at school where I was at college who had already been like previous Tumblr friends with you and a few people from your high school.
Yeah.
And this was the time we became friends. The Perks movie came out around that time. And so yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just like you said, Tori,
Yeah.
I'm definitely blogging the heck out of it.
Right.
Yeah, and I have, the first tattoo I got, which was in my freshman year,
Mm-hmm.
has direct perks reference to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like a
It's
really
just
fun, like for
I love it.
especially because you've been an English teacher, like that. I'm like very interested on like your take on Bill because like I
Oh,
have like
I
a
have thoughts.
I'm not saying
Not
yeah,
yet.
okay,
Not
cool.
yet. Don't worry. I have
Not yet.
thoughts. Big thoughts. Yeah. So after Charlie's hanging out with them, and the next entry, this is the first time we see Charlie deal with anything with his sexuality besides like the crush, right? Because crushes don't equal sexuality, etc. He ends up having a wet dream about Sam, and then the next day he goes and tells Sam, which is like, I would never, but Sam takes it so well. She's like, yeah, I just don't want you to like me like that, Charlie. And he's like, okay, respect it. Will do. Try my best. And I was like, this is like weirdly healthy for 15 and 18-year-olds.
If I remember correctly, I believe his family is, or at least in the maybe they made his family in the movie, like Catholic.
It fits the
So
vibe. I mean, it's
yeah,
Pittsburgh.
and so I wonder if there's like something related to that of just like, oh, shame, you know what I mean? Like, oh, like I should feel guilty about this thing that I don't have an understanding of how someone might perceive being told about it. Because I've
Yeah.
heard of younger people thinking that that is like a compliment, and it's not. And Sam took it
Yeah.
very, very well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Throughout and from that moment on, Charlie is very actively like trying to respect that and be like, she is my friend. She
Mm.
is my friend over and over, which is like a lot of teenage boys don't learn that, you know?
Yeah, I know. Like that's the one thing is that imagine being like a 15-year-old high school student who's like actually like is hanging out with older people, but the older people are actually setting boundaries.
Hmm.
Like that is not necessarily what people think of when they think of like someone who's young becoming friends with the seniors, right? Like you usually
Yeah.
stories of pushing your boundaries. And I will say that there's things in here that I think would to a person that's not Charlie would probably think that.
Hmm.
But in a sense, like I just appreciated that Sam is from the get-go is like, you know, he says things that are like, it's like a green, but it's not like a very assuming green. So it's very green, you know, it's just
Hmm.
little things that aren't really to me, at least in my lens and all my, you know, feminist college education, would say is objectification. Like I don't read it as that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just, you know, he does take it to heart. And there's moments throughout this book where he's like, I've had this thought, but I shouldn't have this thought. And I don't want
Yeah.
to do this thing because this might happen, you know, really overthinking it.
Yeah.
Trying to do the best until he doesn't.
Truly.
Oh,
Um, yeah. Then the next time he's like hanging out with Bill at school, he's asking about like crushes and relationship that he's of people he sees in the hallway of people like sharing jackets and like the idea of property in a relationship. And this is where we get the line from Bill, one of the I think one of the better lines. I mean, there's so many good lines in here, but and he says, "We accept the love we think we deserve." I see that line everywhere.
yeah.
And I'm like, guys, I mean, maybe the author was inspired by a classic phrase, or maybe like his like therapist told him that one day, you know what I mean? But
I
like,
read the story behind it.
yeah, you
So
did.
have you seen it?
I don't not like off the top of my head, not that I
So
remember.
I read it this morning in the like development for the book. And
Hmm.
basically the author was saying was that he had for like years been thinking about like this idea of like Charlie. And he was
Hmm.
also like going through this thing with himself where he really was struggling with like himself and I think other people in his life that he was like loving that they're, you know, doing like self-destructive like relationships and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Apparently that phrase, when that like either he thought of it or came across it, that
Hmm.
became the real next step for this book was like, oh, like that was what I was looking for within my character,
Hmm.
especially because this is a
Yes.
semi-biographical book.
Yeah, for sure. And it does fit like because this book is just character driven, like the plot very minimal, right?
Mhm.
Um, this line really does as like a theme for the book. I think it's probably the best theme for the book. It does fit like every single character and all their different issues. Like, with his parents, his mom is always quiet, but when she does speak out, it's listened to. So like between her relationship with her husband, her sister and the boyfriend
Yeah.
issues, right? Charlie, eventually we learn this. He sees this, like he examines this in Sam and in Patrick throughout the
Yeah.
book. Even with Bill eventually. It's so
It's such
good.
a good, yeah. And I remember reading it the first time and being like, oh, like it like spoke to my
Right?
soul, especially like as like a person who grew up along around like relationships that were adult relationships with children that were going past the divorce date, in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
I like felt this way a little bit in the beginning myself about my own biological like parents, like my mom, and being like, why did you like you had all these dreams and you had these things you wanted to do? Like, why didn't you? And
Hmm.
I like always felt like that kind of like encapsulated, I guess, like at the
Yeah.
time, you of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
think it's a very insightful line. I don't know if it's true all the time,
No,
but
I would.
like I don't think it's a you know what I mean? Just
surface level, I think. And if you like want to, apply it to your life, like I have in my past, you talk about in therapy.
yeah. I think it's yeah, it's a good lens to look at life for a bit, but not to like put all of your effort towards.
It's just such a game-changing sentence to a 50,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, like I'd never, especially this 15-year-old who's like never thought of, like he'll be like, I've never thought of that before. Like I've never
Mm-hmm.
thought this way before. And so it's definitely like, it's on page 24, but like this kicks off, like you said, like major themes already.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Charlie's hanging out with his friends and Bill's like encouraging him to like participate eventually, but we get these flashbacks of throughout the book, and sometimes they make sense with what Charlie's going through in high school at that moment, and sometimes they don't make sense because that's what happens with memories. And he tells the person he sent the letters to this really graphic memory of when his brother threw like an infamous house party, and this couple came into his room to like make out originally, and they like weirdly asked this like probably what 10-year-old 8-year-old kid, hey, can we use your room? And Charlie was like, I'm gonna be in here. And they just like stayed there, which is one red
Yeah.
flag. Like, and then it's essentially an account, like Charlie doesn't realize,
How
even when
bad?
he's retelling the memory, he doesn't realize it, but the boy ends up like raping the girl, and Charlie just is sitting there watching it and not understanding at all. And it's just like this memory, I feel like, is when the reader, you're like, oh, it's not just that Charlie is shy or anxious or stuff around him is hard. Like, it's not that his family has financial issues. Like, it's not just like, what you think would make a normal, any run of the mill teenager have a hard life. It's like, oh no, he has seen some real shit. And this is the moment where you're like, oh, there's something else, for me at least, there's something else going on with this kid. And I feel like it's that moment where you're like, oh.
Yeah, you basically, within the first part of this book, you end up
Mm-hmm.
hearing instances
Mm-hmm.
of people who are doing things sexually that they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this instance, and then there's a conversation that happens with Sam
Yeah.
later. And so for this one, like this is definitely like a very explicit because Charlie asks, like,
Yes.
this is what it was, this is the word, right?
Mm-hmm.
And um later on you find out that they're still together.
Yeah, which is heartbreaking. It's also hard for Charlie too, because like, as a kid, you believe often in absolutes, like bad things should happen to bad people. And it's like that first instance of like, nothing has happened to this boy, you know? And it's just hard. But he like talks to his sister about it, and he talks to Sam and Patrick about it when they're in their car. But in the same like letter, it goes from describing this horrific, like traumatic scene he saw to them being in the truck going through the tunnels in Pittsburgh, which is it's one of the most iconic scenes from
Yeah.
the movie, from the book, and it's like within 3 pages of each other. And like that is just like, I just love how much depth this book has within pages. And it like mirrors Charlie's brain, where he has these really dark moments, and then the next moment is like this beautiful, happy moment. And it's just, I think the entries really show they go through the tunnels, and there's music playing, and Sam gets in the back of the truck while Patrick drives, and they go through the tunnel, and Charlie says out loud, I feel infinite. It's the first time he like has that really good moment within the book. And he describes it of being like the first 5 minutes I've really felt purely good. And it's just like, we just want Charlie to be happy.
Yeah.
And it's so sweet. But I didn't realize this scene happened so quickly in the book. Because in my brain, it happens later. Because again, the movie's stuck in my brain.
Yeah.
And we can, we'll describe the movie and stuff like different next up. It kind of shocked me. It was this early and so close to that like traumatic memory.
Yeah. Because that's the one thing about this that, like, again, I've got theories for later about Charlie, like, as a character and stuff. And so the one thing that is so true about this book is that it's like boom, 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 right? Like,
Yes.
huge thing about his party experience, what happened to a person in front of him. And then it's like, and the next day, we were at the
Yeah.
homecoming dance, and
Yeah.
I'll talk later about some of the things that I've seen with Charlie and like, some like disassociation that seems to be coming off to me, at least in parts of this book. And so for him to because didn't he? Yeah, he started this with, I'm sorry I haven't written to you in a couple weeks, but I've been trying to participate. So that's when this starts. It's like he's starting
Yeah.
to, and he's just like, it's a lot. And then yeah, it's just like, oh, it's a homecoming dance. And then after the homecoming dance, like this all happens in less
Hmm.
minutes. Like it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it yeah. And so obviously that was a huge phrase for myself. My perks tattoo has an infinity symbol, which is so 2012 because everybody was getting infinity symbols. And I was like,
It
no,
was the moment.
mine's more meaningful. Because like didn't have words for when I had maybe huge serotonin boosts, it kind
Hmm.
of sounds like of,
Hmm.
you get those things where you're just like, you have your first real friend experience where they're doing cooler things. Like, because when I was in school, when I was a sophomore, so I'm like, I
Hmm.
guess the same age as him, I made friends with like a junior and a senior.
Hmm.
And they were so cool. Like they were the cool girls and a band. And they were actually like homecoming court. So I guess they were generally cool girls.
Yeah.
And the feeling of them just like taking me around and showing me things, like I can totally relate to like how that feels.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially like as a person who always got such a great, I can't really do it now in Northern Virginia, it's too scary. But when I was living in Texas, such as when I was, this is where I was living when I read this book, the highway, I would just like drive sometimes by myself with really loud music and like,
Hmm.
I guess almost recreating the feelings for myself and just what that can mean and everything. So yeah, it's wild that it is so early and it's also
Hmm.
there's some very like real stuff being talked.
Yes, very, and it's intense. And yeah, and then it bounces from that to the first party he goes to
Whole
with
friend group.
Patrick. Yeah, the whole friend group. So we have Patrick and Sam, who are like the core friends with Charlie. They go to their friend Bob's place, and Bob is has graduated. He's in like a community college. Like Bob's a total like stoner.
He's a
Like
leader.
absolutely, he's the group stoner.
Yeah.
Every group has one at least. And and he's at the party, and he's just like sitting there watching everything around him. Charlie ends up eating what ends up being a weed brownie. I don't think Charlie knew that per
I don't
se.
think so. And I do have one note that's not a real note, but if you can feel something within 30 minutes, that has to be a very, very strong edible to be
Yes,
having. That was a literal thing I underlined and then added a little note. In the case
absolutely.
of like 30 minutes, like, I mean, I guess
Yep.
zero tolerance, but still, I just,
Yeah, he is just a little baby, but
it's just weird.
also,
It's like, wow, he clearly must be so high, but it's almost feels downplayed and when they're recounting it. But maybe that's what it is.
and maybe it just felt, just the way he described it in memory, you
Yeah.
know, because
Yeah,
like
it's
that's the
kind of
thing with this is like our it's like the whole like unrelatable narrator. We haven't really talked about this yet, but like
mhm.
Charlie's an unrelatable narrator that we want to relate to so much, right?
Yeah.
So like we want to give him all the trust, but like we can't, 100% trust everything he's
Yeah.
saying, right? And we learn that over and over throughout the book.
Mhm.
But at the party, he's sitting there high, watching everything, and this is when Patrick describes him saying like he is a wallflower, and then they all cheers to Charlie, and this is when Charlie really like thinks about himself as being a wallflower, and he's like, yes, I have been, but also look at, I'm a wallflower, but I'm also participating. Like, he's
I'm
just,
at this party. Like,
yeah.
he is a spectacle to everyone around. I mean,
Hmm.
I've seen that in my own life where there's like a person who got high and they
Hmm.
didn't mean to. And, Sam is such a great, old
Yes.
friend to be like, wait a minute, like, let's move you from the equation rather than
Yep.
kind of like laugh with you. They weren't really laughing at him. It was just, funny as some people can be when they get high for the first time, especially
Yeah.
high, which I assume they all are. So
Yes.
I can just
Yeah.
assume because they're in the basement and they talk about being with the dealer. So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So shout out to Sam for like making a milkshake, but also like in this case, another very deep scene happens
Yes.
after. Yeah.
Yeah, just paragraphs in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they go back into the truck. They're going back through the Fort Pitt tunnel. Um, I've never been to Pittsburgh, but
We should go. I think that it's not that far. We should honestly just go
hockey
and do
game.
I think we should do our own. Well, I want to go to the Flyers if I'm being honest. No, yeah, it is the Flyers. I want to see Gritty if in Philly.
I absolutely,
I want to
absolutely.
do that, but I want to go to Pittsburgh because we could go to that tunnel, the two of us.
Let's do it.
I mean, I can go to the Pittsburgh hockey. I love hockey. I'm not really.
I'm down for it. I just like watching hockey in person.
I love hockey, and it's just like if I'm going to Pennsylvania, I want to go to Gritty first.
Oh,
But
I understand.
I'm down to go.
Cool. We'll do it. We'll recreate our own scene
Yeah.
safely.
Just disclaimer: we would do our research on how to do this as
Oh,
safely as possible.
oh, absolutely. I'm down.
Then we find out about Brad and
Hmm.
why exactly Patrick has been yelling at Brad during the film.
Yes.
Like, as Charlie has noted, for some reason he keeps saying, Patrick's saying, go Brad, like talking to Brad. And
Hmm.
in the movie, they play it off like a joke. And
Hmm.
I don't think it's as jokey in the book almost. Like, it just
Yeah.
very into it rather than a joke. So,
Yeah. Charlie walks in on them making out, right? And then this is when Sam's making the milkshake and explaining, like, hey, or no, Patrick tells him, I think, hey, keep this our little secret. Like, so it's another time where he's been asked by someone to keep a secret. And then, like, understandably, I think of all the secrets so far, the one where you're like,
secrets in this letter so far. So, the first
yeah,
one was the couple and Sam being like, don't tell anyone.
yeah, true. So many secrets.
Yeah,
But
and that's just
Charlie,
part one. And
just
like
part
you
one.
already said that, like, as much as this is like a huge setup, it's still not like the main driving force of the story.
Hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things that this book, I think, is one of those books that gets better with a reread.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I love. I love a treasure hunt. In part two, we get introduced to more characters. We meet Mary Elizabeth, who has a tattoo and a bell ring and is a Buddhist. We all know Mary Elizabeth out there.
Oh yeah.
Mary Elizabeth was also a senior, and she's like very bossy. Like just described her as like always arguing, always has an opinion. Um, just classic senior, probably debate kid. Alt
Yeah.
debate kid.
Punk Rocky.
Oh yeah, the punk Rocky. They have a zine that they put.
I mean, Rocky Horror. I mean, I did remember it, but it really is such a central thing
Yeah,
into
in my head, because like my small town did not have Rocky Horror.
no.
Absolutely not. I didn't watch. I mean, I watched the movie in high school, but like I didn't watch an actual live performance of it till I was in college. But isn't it at most like theaters they have it like all October and then that's it?
So, okay, I have to out myself on this. I've
Go
never
for
watched
it.
or gone to a performance. And I think it's because I want to go to a performance, but I'm too scared of being called out as a virgin and being like on the spotlight. Like the thought of that gives me like
Oh,
anxiety. So just now.
absolutely. So
So
like here's the thing. At least so I went to a showing in Montana in college and the acted out thing, but at the theater we were doing it, they had just got renovated, and so they didn't let us throw anything. So it wasn't like a true Rocky Horror experience. And also we got there a little bit late and we missed the virgin call out thing. But also if you just don't say anything,
yeah, that's one thing I need to
or
do.
you just need to dress up.
Um,
So if you just like look very like Rocky
I
Horror, like
I
slutty,
know what I'm doing.
exactly, just fake it till you make it.
That was kind of
And
what I thought I would do is just like, no,
yeah,
I've been to a million of these. I'm a casual observer, and then just try not to look too excited
yeah.
so I don't get caught.
I mean, everyone's excited. It's like going to like a drag brunch.
It's interactive, which I mean, it is weird that I've never done it. I mean, I will say that in my college experience that I think you were kind of right. There was like out in Lincoln, Nebraska. There was like, I think they did it like once a year or something.
Yeah. And in the book, they're
Most
doing it every weekend or
And
every
I
other
have heard
weekend.
of that, and I have heard of that.
But
So
also it's like very 90s of
it
them to
is.
do
That's what I'm
it.
thinking. But it's
Yeah.
like, do people do that as much? Because yeah, there are people who do it around here, but I don't think there's anywhere doing it every single.
That's a lot for any theater production.
I know, right? That's what, and like also it's just like, these friends, like that is what they
Yeah.
do. They don't have jobs, like they're doing.
Rocky Horror. And like I guess it makes sense because like we haven't really talked about it. We do know now that Patrick is gay because Charlie caught him and Brad making out. But like the rest of their like friend group is very like queer coded.
Yeah.
right? So like it makes sense that that group has putting all their energy in this thing that is accepted by the outside world, of being that is like Rocky Horror is like just so gay, like there's no
Yeah,
going
there's
around
no
it,
yeah.
right? And so I feel like that's like the probably the one thing in this town that they can do safely and be themselves safely,
Exactly. Mhm.
right? Which is probably why this is like they put so much effort to have it every week or whatever. So it makes sense within the context of it being the 90s and,
There
you
weren't a lot
know,
of places that were going to be as openly
mhm,
like safe for somebody to enjoy or dress up and like do stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah. As he's like becoming friends with everyone, he admits to the reader for the first time that he loves Sam.
Mhm.
And he says it's not a movie kind of love. It's just that I look at her and she's the prettiest and nicest person in the whole world. And so I wrote a poem for her. And I didn't show her because I'm embarrassed. And I feel like that is again, it's like puppy love times two. Like it's not like a capital L love. It's not like like sexually attractive at this point, it's just mostly just like like I just really like this person and they're really great and it's just
Say
more.
like my first crush, like I had a very intense, like when I was in high school, like I had a very
Hmm.
intense feeling about it and I didn't feel
Hmm.
like to put it. And
Yep.
so that's what makes these letters like so good for him, like for Charlie, is that he's like, oh, I can actually tell somebody about how much I care and how much I can't do anything and like all that.
Yeah. But also at this point he admits this, but he's like, but also Sam is starting to date Craig, who plays Rocky, and Craig is a college guy, which sketchy. Like Sam might be 18, we don't know. She's a senior, but like Craig's 20 or 21 and he's a
I believe it
photographer.
has to be because like his friend buys them.
Hmm. Yes, true. And he's like hunky, described as hunky. He's a male model for JC Penney.
I know. I'm like, if you're a model for JCPenney, aren't you doing more? Like, I don't
Yeah,
know. Like, JCPenney was so big in the 90s. Like,
right.
I don't know. I feel like you would have gone paid a lot of money to do that.
Hmm. He's just going through school and he's like at this point it starts getting away from the like darker stuff and it's mostly like happy or like neutral entries, like him doing good in school, him.
All he's thinking about basically is like,
Yeah.
oh, look at all these good things that are happening to me right
Yes.
now. Like, not even just this, like his progression of
Hmm.
his first essay for Bill was To Kill a Mockingbird. He got a C on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And like then the next time he talks about a grade, he says, "Oh, I got a B on it."
Hmm. Yeah, it's just more and more like positive thoughts. Thanksgiving comes and everyone's excited because his brother's a star football player at Penn State.
Eh,
His brother being a football star is a huge thing because one, it gives their family like notoriety like
yeah.
on the TV, right? Everyone's like, look at he's just not playing football, he's good at football. But also their family, it's like they're not super poor, but they talk about how his parents give his sister a lot of pressure to get good grades so she can get a scholarship because they can't afford to send them to college without a scholarship. But his brother ends up not coming home, which bums everyone out through Thanksgiving. But we talk about the drama of his family during Thanksgiving, and we get his mom's family comes over, and his grandpa's there, and his grandpa is like just an alcoholic racist. And the only person who really can like calm him down or get him to stop ranting is his brother. And since his brother's not there, he's not able to like calm his grandpa down, but they watch him on the game, which ends up making everyone get along.
You didn't
Uh,
grow up in a football family. But I did. And so I've already mentioned I'm from Nebraska and they always have
yeah.
things. That was always a central part of my childhood, is just watching that and to think about the fact that like they have that extra level and that was like their one glue is like,
Hmm.
so good throughout and like
Yes.
very well throughout the story.
Yeah. My dad always watches the Cowboys game on Thanksgiving. Yeah, my family loves the Cowboys. I just
America's team.
sure.
That's what they say. That's like the joke.
Okay, I don't know. Again,
Learned
like
so much about football from me.
I I love going to football games. I'm an event girly, but do I know anything about the sport? Absolutely
You love a
not.
good live experience.
Absolutely. Give me that serotonin
Yeah.
and then nachos. I did really enjoy the insights of Charlie of his family because like everyone has a version of this, I feel like, of a problematic family member that they just have to deal with, and it ruins everyone's day. Like, ugh.
Yeah, drunk uncle, I think is what people like often refer
Mhm.
as, or I mean, the grandpa serves as that kind of character of like
Yeah.
or family member.
Yeah. After Thanksgiving, they have a secret Santa party with all of his friends, which I love this scene.
Yeah, I love this scene too.
Charlie is very not into his presents. He thinks it's Mary Elizabeth that has got him these presents. He got like a sock and then a tie and then like a pair of pants or something like that. But he has Patrick for Secret Santa, and he's got on all these really sweet gifts. The final one being a really cool mixtape. Um, and I like wrote down as the book went on all the music that was um mentioned, but most of it is in this mixtape. Music is so important to Charlie. We haven't really talked about that yet. Like at the party, he was like the DJ. He like the whole truck scene with the music. Like music, just he attaches memories to music very quickly. The biggest song throughout this book is "Asleep" by the Smiths. And like I quote in Music League all the time, whenever I put a Smith song, I say, "I love the Smiths." It says Summer from 500 Days of Summer
Yes.
and Janessa. I always say that because I find it
Oh
funny.
yeah, 500 Days, and this book got me into a
Oh,
very brief the
Smiths.
Smith.
Oh, goodness. But this playlist is so 90s. So the playlist is Asleep by the Smiths, Vampire Trail by Red, Scarborough Fair by Simon and Garfunkel, A Wider Shade of Pale by Procol Harum, Time of No Reply by Nick Drake. I don't know that song. It's like the first one I don't know. Anyways, Dear Prudence by the Beatles, Gypsy by Suzanne Vega, Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues, Daydream by Smashing Pumpkins. Isaac loves Smashing Pumpkins, and he didn't recognize that song off the top of head.
Oh, really? Okay.
I yelled at him. I'm like, "Do you know this song?" He's like, "No, I don't." And I was like, "He has a Smashing Pumpkins tattoo now, and he didn't know that song."
Big fan.
I know, big fan, Isaac, calling you out. Anyways, Dusk by Genesis, MLK by U2, Blackbird by the Beatles, and Landslide by Fleetwood Mac. What a moody playlist, and it's supposed to be like a winter playlist.
Yeah, and he's also said like this is the second time Landslide has been mentioned, and
Mm-hmm.
Landslide was in the first car, and I was like, that's a great song, but it's not like a song that makes me like super happy, you know?
No, most of these songs are not happy songs,
I know, and he's just like, here's my best friend.
right? But like he wants it's like partially like songs that go with the winter vibe, partially songs he thinks Patrick will like, but also like this playlist is very much younger kid wants senior kid to think he's cool. Yes. Yes.
Showing off his music education by putting
Hmm.
on bands. Yeah, it's so classic.
Yeah. The Secret Santa gift exchange is just super sweet. They exchange all their presents. Patrick loves the tape, of course, because Patrick's just like always so accepting of Charlie. Like Charlie does anything, he's like, "Awesome, Charlie," like immediately, no
Yeah.
question. And acceptance and inclusion are just like so important to Charlie, but also into the whole book as it go, like into any teenager, really, right?
You go from like I don't have any friends, I don't want to be in the school
Mhm.
cafeteria to I am putting in all my effort by getting gifts for everybody. I'm putting together meaningful platonic, gift
Yeah,
like that. It's just like it's cute.
it's just so good. I believe, isn't it Patrick that has him for Secret Santa?
Um,
Yeah, it's Patrick that ended up
I
getting him all the whole outfit, right?
think so.
Because he thinks it's Mary Elizabeth the whole time, but Mary Elizabeth ends up giving Alice a present, I believe. Alice is a random friend in their group that we sometimes hear about.
She was in the book more, if I'm being honest. And then by the
Yeah,
end, I was like, wow, Alice is really just a side character.
truly.
Like I
Nothing.
knew she was, but like really.
Uh-huh. Truly. But yeah, Charlie gets everyone a little present, which is just so sweet. Like even Mary Elizabeth, he gives her money to print the zine in color, but Sam takes him up to her room. Charlie gives Sam a 45 record of Something by the Beatles, which was given to him by his Aunt Helen, who like we've heard about a few times so far, but all we know is that she lived with him at their family's house, and then she ended up dying, and that's about it so far. But Sam tells him that she loves him, but in like a friend way, and this is when Charlie says this is like the second time he's ever heard someone say I love you since his Aunt Helen died when he was like 7. The other times were his mom. And it's like this poor sweet kid. Sam gives him a typewriter and says, write about us sometime. And he's like, I will. And it's such a sweet scene. And then she asks him if the whole kissing thing.
Now that's where I divert my feelings.
This scene is like, this scene's weird.
Yeah.
Sam asks, like, hey, have you kissed a girl? And Charlie's like, no. And then she tells him the story about how the first time she was kissed was by one of her dad's friends when she was 7. And then when she told her family about it, the family friend kept coming over. Like they didn't stop him from coming over, which like, what the fuck? But she like is divulging all this like really important and traumatic information on Charlie. And then it's like, I want the first person to kiss you to truly love you. And then she kisses him. It's sweet that you want to make sure he's loved by the person that kisses him. That's sweet. But did you have to be the person that kissed him? I don't know.
So part of me wants to believe that this is like an experience that the author had that makes this a part of like their semi-autobiographical. And if it's not a thing that I mean, I guess I don't support it anyways. I would, especially because, that saying of, is it if you flip the genders,
Mm-hmm.
how do you feel about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, this is a thing that this kind of story, like you actually see this a lot, like from like I've seen it in books and TV that especially between like the 1995 to 2005, which is weird to think about that I've seen it so often. Like there's a scene in House that I just watched where it was like similar, weirdly enough. And basically to me, I kind of think that I think it's inappropriate, but it does kind of, I guess, build plot in the sense that we know that Sam had an inappropriate kiss and now she's kind of inappropriately kissing.
Mm-hmm.
She's also doing it because she has like this love and affection that's like older. And I kind of feel like this is where I also like have problems with Sam of like, is this where you are blurring some lines of you maybe having a crush? Like, I when I first started this book, I actually kind of forgot until I revealed it that he's only technically supposed to be 2 grades younger than him.
Yeah.
I had at first, I was like, this is like a 14-year-old. And
Yeah.
it's not great to have a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, and especially one who is so admittedly unexperienced.
Mm-hmm.
In that she's trying to protect him just because of her own experience. And not my favorite scene.
No, it's not great. And I think it's supposed to be uncomfy though. Like I think like is it written to be like to move the plot forward like you said and to be like a happy moment for Charlie, or was it written to be both of those things and to be uncomfy? I don't know.
Yeah.
It could. And if it's there to add nuance to make Sam a more gray character than just like a great girl, you know what I mean?
Soul,
Yeah, so like if it is, I think it's worth it within the context of the book, but also because it's from Charlie's point of view, he's like, this is amazing. And it's like celebrated, you know what I mean? During this Santa party, he ends up reading a poem that he found when he was younger that he had his brother print out for him at one point. This poem is intense. It's the poem called, I looked it up. It's a real poem that exists. It's called A Paper, a Person, a Promise by Dr. Earl Reum, Reum, Room. Not sure about that pronunciation, but I looked into it. This person, Dr. Earl Reum, was an educator who put most of his like professional effort into suicide prevention and mental health awareness in teenagers. The purpose of this poem is to like add to that, apparently. I don't know if it's successful in my point of view of this poem. It's a very dark and depressing poem. It's a long poem. If you want to look it up, go look it up. I don't want to read it really. Again, I did not like the poem, personally, but I did like that they included it and it wasn't just like, oh, I read this poem and everyone was silent, but not a bad silent, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm glad they included what poem it was, but
I mean, it's gonna be real that sometimes when you are friends with older people, you go for a swing
It's
and
true.
it fails miserably and you did
Yeah.
something kind of wrong, maybe inappropriate, like,
Hmm.
and so the thing being like at the end of this letter is just like somebody said it was in someone's suicide note, just being like, "Ugh."
Yeah. Yeah. Just not a good choice on Charlie's part, but
Christmas.
yeah. Then it's Christmas break, which is a big struggle for Charlie.
Yeah, he's
Not
been
only do
around and then he's drop off. All he's alone.
Mhm. Exactly. He doesn't have his friends anymore, and also his family drama adds to it, just his, extended family members, like at Thanksgiving, also at Christmas. But then we find out that his birthday is the 24th. He talks about at the beginning of Christmas break, he says on page 74, he says, I can already feel myself going to a bad place I used to go after my Aunt Helen was gone. I went to that place. It got so bad that my mom had to take me to the doctor and I was held back a grade. He talks about how it almost happened this morning, but I was thought of Sam's kiss and it went away. And he goes, I'm just trying to participate. And this on essentially everything on page 74, it feels like I've never out to my knowledge, maybe not, experienced dissociation, but the description feels like what all my friends who have experienced that have like described it to be that way. And he also is saying I'm just going to that bad place, whether that be depression or dissociation, but it feels like that.
Yeah, I'm a person who struggles with disassociation, and basically he has. I mean, he says he's gone to a psychiatrist or he's like seen this doctor, right? And
Hmm.
so what he's doing is basically like a grounding tactic, of like thinking of like what's the thing that made you like the happiest, or like what's a thing like a sensory memory,
Hmm.
that can kind of like bring you to the present. So, um, yeah, this is where he starts explicitly saying like this is a very bad pervasive like cloud over him.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I mean, I think because we do find out the kiss with Sam is what helps ground him, I think then adds to our earlier little conversation about that scene. And it's like, okay, this is not good. It goes from being like interesting plot device, interesting thing to make her nuanced, but also now I'm like,
This
no.
thing that wasn't supposed to be what he's making it, he's making it,
Yes.
that's the thing that's keeping me going, even though it's
Mhm.
meant to be like a platonic kiss.
Yeah, exactly. Then we get to the 24th, which is his birthday. His dad's late to dinner. His mom is stressed because of the birthday and his dad being late. His brother is back in town. A lot of like family drama.
Mhm.
He writes a lot more details about all of his cousins. Um, and his brother comes back from college, which is like a bright spot. His brother's talking about a girl he met, and Charlie's like imagining a perfect world where his brother has like a really interesting girlfriend and they like to talk about books over cocoa and everything. He like, does he drink cocoa? And then his brother just laughs at him. And I was like, oh, poor guy. I think it's interesting because the parts where he's with his friends, the entries seem to either, if they're long, they talk about like multiple days, but if often they're short, right? Where this is like just a couple days of Christmas break and it's just pages and pages and pages of him dealing with
Yeah.
all of his family stuff. Like a lot of it, I don't want to like skip over all the family drama, but there's just so
So
much
much.
family drama. We do learn more about his family's life. So his grandpa had to like drop out of high school to support his family and put a lot of pressure on his mom and his aunt Helen to do good, which was not great. We do find out that his aunt Helen had a lot of issues because she was molested when she was young, and we don't know who did that. We just know it wasn't her dad. Is all that he says. It was a friend of the family, and like similar to Sam's situation, they kept coming over and were not stopped. But that caused his Aunt Helen to struggle with other relationships in her life, as well as drugs and alcohol. And then we find out that she died on his birthday. So his birthday's on Christmas Eve. So everyone usually got him one present on Christmas to be a combo. But his Aunt Helen made sure to give him two presents, one on his birthday, one on Christmas. And so his aunt was headed out to go get a present, and she got in a really bad car accident. He wasn't allowed to go to the funeral, and he just like starts describing all these memories with Aunt Helen about his birthday, and he like blames himself about her death because he says, I know that my Aunt Helen would still be alive today if she bought me one present like everyone else. And
Yeah.
she'd be alive if I weren't born on the same day as Christmas Eve. Like he's just like spiraling out of control. It's just poor Charlie.
Yeah.
During this Christmas break, he's reading The Catcher in the Rye because he's so bored because he has no friends and his parents or don't want him to bother him. He reads The Catcher in the Rye 3 times.
Yeah.
Have you read The Catcher in the Rye?
I read it in college and I was not a huge fan.
I I read it in college as well, and I hated it.
I was recommended that book and On the Road by I don't want to say pretentious kind of guy, but he like went to arts high school and he was just like, you never read these? And I was like, no,
As an
like
English major, if a boy said his favorite book was On the Road or Catcher in the Rye, immediate red flag.
yeah.
Immediate red flag. Yeah,
Yeah, that situation did not last long for me.
definitely. Yeah. Um, Charlie does get his driver's license, which for any kid is a sign of freedom, but right. But especially for Charlie, because he just was stuck, literally physically stuck and also mentally stuck at home with all these traumatic memories and really stressful situations with his family. And he can't escape it mentally, but he also can't physically at least change it. Yeah. So he gets his license and he's able to go and drive to the New Year's Eve party. And he makes himself a mixtape called The First Time I Drove. And I also made a CD for the first time I
Oh,
drove my
really?
car by myself. Do you know what the first song was? I'm really proud of it. It was 2 Weeks by the Grizzly Bears.
Oh, yeah.
Great driving song. And also go 16-year-old Janessa because her music taste questionable. I was still listening to contemporary Christian rock. So, shout out Reliant K. Anyways, he goes to Bob's house for a New Year's Eve party and he's excited to finally see all his friends. First, he goes up to see his Aunt Helen's grave, though, and he goes up there and he brings her flowers and a mixtape and he weeps. He just weeps and weeps and weeps. He also makes a promise to Aunt Helen that he's only going to cry about really important stuff. Throughout the book, so far, his family talks about how Charlie stopped crying over every little thing.
Yeah.
But also then he has his dad who, like, he's only seen his dad cry once in a very, like, toxic masculinity way. And so then here we have him, like, I don't know if I read it as, like, him trying to be, like, more, quote, manly, or is it just him trying to function better and not literally cry at every emotion?
What I see is like him basically rationalizing, like, well, if I'm crying at all these other things and it's like panicking, like, does that mean that when I like care, like I'm crying for my aunt who I love so much that like I'm being like this guilt, like he's feeling like it's not as valid to like have panic cries as it is to like when someone passes that you loved. And
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there is like a sense of it that is some masculinity that you don't really see him ever say. Like,
No.
it's, I'm less than, I'm like, he never actually like, when it comes to his crying, and again, this is like part of my later theories on him, but that is one thing I've always noticed is that like people don't tell him to like man up or anything.
Yeah.
Like he just struggles with the amount of crying he does and why he cries. And so this is like him like trying to force his emotions and try to basically.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna cry anymore because like I can only cry for this,
Yeah.
It's just depressed person, unfortunately.
Yes. But he goes to Bob's house for a New Year's Eve party and Bob gives him what we later on figure out is LSD. And poor Charlie has like the worst trip of his life because he's dealing with all of this grief and guilt about his Aunt Helen's death. Like he literally went to the party after going to her grave, not a great choice there. But he has like the worst trip ever and he ends up like seeing people hook up and he just is feeling so alone. He ends it's ending of part 2. He ends this letter saying, oh yeah, this is after he hears Sam and Craig having sex specifically, not just other people, but like he hears that happening. And he says that I understand the end of that poem and I never wanted to. You have to believe me. And that's how like cliffhanger ends. And you're like, what is this poor kid doing? But then days later, we find out that he describes his essentially the really bad trip. He finished that writing that letter and he went to walk to the post office because he knew if he didn't send it, like he wouldn't be able to get those emotions out, you know? And then the police found him in the snow outside the post office.
But yeah, he's found out. He's
He's found
found
outside of the snow. And
gives himself. He's like he lands himself in the hospital from hypothermia.
he decides that he's never going to take LSD again, which good move for you, dude. That's
Family shouldn't be doing it at 15 anyways. What the
right.
fuck is wrong with
Oh
Bob?
my gosh. Right, Bob.
That Bob is
Bob is not a great guy.
no, those are people who are not doing boundaries. They're just like, oh, you're gay, like let's do it. And it's just like, no, like way too young. You don't need to be doing acid when you're 15, 16.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. At school, he reunites with Sam and Patrick while they're smoking outside, and Sam like comforts Charlie through this bad trip, and Charlie picks up smoking with them. And before this, he had not. He gets the book On the Road from Mr. Bill. Oh boy. I mean, I don't want to say kids shouldn't read certain books, but certain kids shouldn't read certain books.
Yeah,
you know?
Bill's trying a little too hard with that one. And also I've got to say, I did write a note for at the end of this letter. He says, I'm now up to about 10 cigarettes a day. How can your heart maintain that, man?
And,
like we're not
and like
like
yes,
a 15-year-old doesn't sound like you're not constantly like running around. Like I can't
no.
imagine. Like, how can you handle that?
And also, like, where are you smoking? Because he can't smoke at home because his parents will know. So it has to be between classes at lunch
Yeah, it
and in
has
the
to be-
car to and from.
Yeah.
Right? That's so many cigarettes to not get caught.
His throat must hurt.
Absolutely. Ugh. They can also probably smoke at Big Boy because it's
Well,
probably,
they can smoke anywhere. There's like some scene in here where a
yeah.
woman's smoking in the mall.
Yeah, because it's
So
pre no
that's
indoor smoking. Charlie describes going to his psychiatrist and like, I don't know if I think it might be a different psychiatrist, but he
that
ends up
sounds like a new
yeah, he likes the psychiatrist a lot. But he's always like, he keeps asking me about these certain questions over and over, and I don't understand. But I keep talking about Sam and I keep talking about Rocky Horror and I talk about Patrick and his funny jokes. But he keeps asking me about this one memory, and I just don't get it. But I'm gonna continue to participate. And then we're here as a reader. I think we're finally being like, what is he avoiding? Because we are starting to see that. Like he hides it pretty well in the first half of the book, but now that we're in the second half of the book, it's like, okay, there's something there.
the
And
sheen has like fallen off for him. Like he like and like I'm a person who also really struggles around the holidays if I'm by myself. So like and then I would be by myself and I'd have a really hard day and the next day I'd be around friends and I wouldn't be it'd be like 180. Like I wouldn't even feel and so like I see that even as an adult, in that of just like you're starting to see it in the pages that he's like, towards the holidays of starting to get bad again. Like I'm kind of like over analyzing or thinking about things that aren't quite real. And so it is like another one of those like convenient information drop-offs. Like
Yep.
in the hospital, he's smoking cigarettes. I have a nice psychiatrist,
Yep. As school starts up, he gets away from exactly what you're saying, away from describing what is truly going on and just like the shallow basic facts of his life. For some reason, Craig is not able to play Rocky one night, so Charlie is then asked to step in as Rocky and describes having a blast through it, even though it's not something that he ever saw himself doing. This causes Mary Elizabeth to find him intriguing, and Mary Elizabeth asks him to the Sadie Hawkins dance. He's excited to have a date, even though it's not who he would want, because Sam is intending on bringing Craig. They go to the Sadie Hawkins dance, and Sam is alone because Craig doesn't want to go to a high school dance. Charlie's not having a great time because we understand that he doesn't actually like Mary Elizabeth. He just likes being liked, which, many people have that experience for a
Yeah.
few relationships or two in high school.
Yeah. I mean, saying yes
Yeah.
to somebody who you're like, in the end, you're like, I actually didn't really want to date you. I just love
Hmm.
the idea that you wanted to date me.
Yeah. Sam has this like weird this part I didn't love. I mean, I don't know, it's complicated. Sam like tells Charlie like, "Hey, Mary Elizabeth is very experienced. So be careful. Also, don't tell her that she's pretty. Ask her questions." Like trying to give him like a leg up on the relationship, but also like in a weird way. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I mean, I get it. She's very protective over Charlie,
Yeah.
but like, there's this is another area. It's not like a perfect move by Sam, but also I think it's good that we see that Sam's not. Because if she was like a perfect person, then she'd be very manic pixie dream girl, right? Nothing wrong.
Like you can tell that she's literally like saying like,
Hmm.
oh, like, and it's not quite as bad of like, oh, like now you can go do this instead of finish like with me, but she kind of doing that.
Yeah.
I would say of just like, not necessarily about like, oh, it's not about me, but it seems to be like feeding this like experience to him.
Hmm.
Hey, if you do this, like it's gonna go well instead of like being with somebody he truly likes.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that moment, she really should have been like, do you actually like her?
Exactly.
He doesn't ask that question until way later.
Yeah. At the dance, Charlie sees his sister and her boyfriend, who she's not supposed to be seeing because he's the one that hit her that one time, and Charlie told Bill, who told the parents, and it was a whole
Yeah, that
thing.
was a huge thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And he sees his sister with the secret boyfriend in an argument, and then the boy leaves his sister, and so he goes to like comfort his sister and be like, "What's up?" And she like yells at him to like go away and it's not talking, but later tells him that she's pregnant and
Yeah.
that the boy broke up with her because she's pregnant. And so Charlie's like, "I can drive you to the clinic tomorrow." She asks him, and he's like, "Good thing I just got my license." Like tries to make a joke, but like,
Oh, he tries to make her feel better because it's another experience that, like in a situation, he has no idea how to respond. So he just says
uh-huh,
something.
yeah.
And it's a little bit different for you, I guess. But before you got to college, how many books did you read where they talked about like abortion, either positively or just matter of the fact?
Um, Probably some Christian bullshit, like
That would be bad. I mean, like
yeah,
this,
yeah.
I would
Just
say,
probably like something like that, like in some, I don't know, like Girl Peppa Bible study book I probably read. Or that, I don't remember it though, but the only time besides like people just saying abortion is bad or whatever growing up was Dirty Dancing. That was like my only, because we didn't have a Planned Parenthood on the island.
yeah. I mean, I would say that I had seen the movie. I had not quite put as many dots together on abortion in that sense, other than it was bad or it went bad.
Hmm.
And I always knew that my family was anti-abortion.
Yeah,
Like
that, yeah.
the first time that I recognized that it was actually in like first grade.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yes, I had asked my nana. I was
Hmm.
like, who can I vote for? Because it was the 2004 election.
Well, we all had to vote at school.
Yeah.
Yep, we did
Uh,
that too.
or like, yeah, I don't know if we had a vote, and we just had to talk about it.
We
And
had we had a school vote.
uh, well, I think that it was, maybe they just don't do that in rural Nebraska because they just assumed. But I asked her. I
Yeah.
was like, I said, who are you gonna vote for? And she was like, Bush. And I was like, why won't you vote for John Kerry? Because I was already a budding Democrat around this
Hmm.
time. I had a biological father who watched
Hmm.
Fox News all day, and I was like, whatever that is. Even in third grade, I told him I was a Democrat.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. So it's like fourth grade or whatever. And she just says to me, well, how your aunt's pregnant. I was like, yeah. She goes, he's for killing babies.
Mm.
And I was like after they're born, you like stab them or like do you
Hmm.
I was like, what do you mean? And she tried to explain what abortion was to me. And I
Yeah.
was like, this sounds like fake news. Like, it doesn't sound like a real thing that you're discussing with me.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. This is probably the first book I read that
Right.
abortion where it's net, I would say it's net positive, but it is a little bit more, it's a fact. And then
Yeah.
I think the one that discusses as a particular that a lot of people don't know about abortion care, which is that you have to wait so long
Hmm.
for a person to even get into their appointment. Like the average person waits an hour before they can even like start. Like they end up like
Hmm.
I don't get too into it because this is gonna be a long podcast maybe. But I did enjoy that part of it.
Hmm.
And of course, I mean
I
the
do remember now. So like, yeah, my in general, like my family in general was like, and at church or whatever, I was like, abortion is bad, and I was like, okay, well, I don't know what that means, etc. Move on with my life, learned later. But the Princess Diaries doesn't talk about like abortion as like none of the characters like have one or whatever, but the Princess Diaries in general, and I talked about this on the Princess Diaries episode with Marissa, but like one that like was my knowledge of anything democratic or liberal growing up was Princess
Mhm.
Diaries because she's like vegan, very like
Yeah.
New York, very like very out in your face democratic. Like then
DVD I ever owned. Actually, my parents
classic.
gave me a DVD player because I always woke up too early,
So
and I
that
would wake
way.
up. So they got me a little mini TV with a DVD player and the Princess
Mhm.
Diaries.
That's awesome. But for sure, they talk about being pro-life or Planned Parenthood in that series. So I probably heard
I
about
didn't
it in
even
there.
get that when, yeah, when if
Yeah.
that was in the movie, I didn't get
It's
that.
not in the
But yeah,
movie. It's for sure not in the
yeah,
movie.
of course it's not.
Disney would
I mean,
never.
that's
But it's
true.
in the book
Yeah.
series. So, but yeah, this book, it is like Charlie's not like, this is a good decision. And he's not like, this is a bad decision. He's just like, this is my sister's decision and I'm going to help her because she's in pain and I'm going to help her. Right. Like that's his whole motivation is to help his sister. And it is definitely like neutral slash net positive, like you said. Then they have a sweet bonding moment when they get home of like lying to their parents and the sister like leading him through that lie and Charlie being like, I don't know how to do this situation.
So you and I are both the eldest siblings with little.
Yes.
My brother and I don't never really got along anyways in my life, but
Mhm.
when we successfully got away with a lie, that was just the most solidarity thing that we really had together in high school was like collectively like hiding something together and being
Mhm.
successful was like, oh my God, we can do this again, like we can be brothers in arms, like literally.
I don't think we ever teamed up to lie. I think honestly, I just lied by myself and never got caught. There's no way my parents are listening to this episode. That is true. Like them, like there is that thing of like like you and your sibling versus your parents, and you and your sibling win, and that is
Especially
like,
when this is a book about secrets.
yeah, that is it's a sweet moment for real life people, but also for Charlie.
Yeah.
um, so he's going on a date with Mary Elizabeth. He has to borrow the car. His parents make it a whole thing, and his dad gives him like a weird like sex talk, like, and he's like, I never even asked about this, and also he ruffled my hair and called me champ, and I'm not sure what's going on. Poor Charlie, just overstimulated all
The
the
amount
time.
of hair ruffling in this book, I would never, never love that. I don't.
Don't mess my hair up. But they go on a date. Mary Elizabeth talks the whole time, essentially. Charlie just sits there thinking to himself about how he doesn't enjoy this. She takes him to her house, which is empty, and like essentially like is like, hey, do you think I'm pretty? He's like, yeah. And then like makes out with him and like he seems to enjoy the act of making out, but he doesn't enjoy that it's with Mary Elizabeth in the end. Um, but they get interrupted before they do anything, quote, under the pants or below the pants, um, to Charlie's like happiness, because poor Charlie. Um, but then as they're dating, Mary Elizabeth constantly is talking about wanting to expose him to all these things and like foreign movies and Billie Holiday all the time. And gives him a poem of an E. Cummings poetry book. And Charlie's just like constantly like, no, in his head. I don't want to do that. I don't want to read that. I don't want to listen to that. Like poor Charlie just needs to.
Like he was like going out and now he's starting to entreat. You kind of really see that.
Mhm.
He's like
Yeah.
not participating. Like he's just watching it happen to him.
Yeah. And then they're at a party, after a game or something. They're at a party and they're all drinking, but then they're playing Truth or Dare, and Patrick asks Charlie dares Charlie kiss the prettiest girl in the room, and he kisses Sam, who's immediately upset because her and Mary Elizabeth are friends, but also Craig's in the room, and Craig doesn't know about the kiss from before, and it just spirals out of control. Charlie doesn't understand at first why it's wrong, but then he slowly realizes why it was wrong, and it's just a whole mess. Patrick drives him home, and Charlie's like, Patrick, if I were gay, I'd want to date you. Patrick's just like, of course. like like Patrick's self-confidence, like, of course he would. Absolutely. But Charlie is essentially like secluded from his friends now.
Yeah.
And because Mary and Elizabeth, we find out, has like some past drama with Sam, and Sam had just gained their trust back. And Charlie just starts to spiral back into himself again.
I will say, I want to mention him calling Bob for a deal.
Oh yeah.
Um, quarter ounce. How much Easter money did this kid have? Like, that is for a kid who doesn't like smoke pot on his own,
Yeah.
that is an amount.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like a quarter of it. I mean, he like, and the fact that he's like, I'm smoking it all the time, and in part for you hear how bad it is.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm just like, Bob, you knew what happened to Charlie and you still sold to him. Like, this is Bob's one of the bad guys. I guess is what
Yeah,
we're saying
he
is Bob's
is.
kind of one of the bad guys
He
here
is
of
one of the bad
Charlie
guys.
giving drugs. He does not care what Charlie's going through. He doesn't like see that, yeah.
Hmm.
He just basically sees Charlie as like a vessel for his own entertainment, I think. Like
Yeah.
it's weed, LSD, giving him drugs when he literally just like fucked everything up with his friends while drunk, you know?
Yeah. After the whole like bad LSD
I
thing.
know.
Like
I know.
like it's one thing to smoke pot with him so you can like be there, right? Like or like in a group where there's other people so someone can watch out for him, but like giving it to him or selling it to him and then like him leaving, like
Yeah.
that's I mean, that's a lot of
Yeah.
responsibility. But Charlie is like going to the mall because he has nowhere to go and has like all these like weird observations of like moms and kids. And he goes to Rocky Horror late and leaves early so that um he isn't seen by everyone, but he can like still see people. And it's just he's starting to spiral. But then Bob tells him that Brad's dad caught Brad and Patrick hooking up, and Brad's dad essentially beat up Brad. Patrick wasn't able to stop him or couldn't stop him. Charlie is like worried about that, but also he kind of like selfishly is like, well, now I can like hang out with Patrick. Like he's not with Brad, right?
Yeah,
Um,
which is good.
yeah. Back at school after that, there's this Brad and Patrick pick a fight. Um, Brad in front of all his football friends because like he's purely closeted to everyone but Charlie's friend group. And at school, his football friends essentially egg Brad on to like yell slurs at Patrick. And they end up having like a 5-on-1 fight before Charlie steps in. And we didn't talk about this at the beginning.
Yeah, he has rage blackouts.
Yes, he has rage blackouts and he has got into a self-defense fight at the beginning of the year, but self-defense, but he didn't remember the actual fight. And this happens here. He essentially like is the reason that Patrick didn't like get extremely beat up.
Somebody does that in Moonlight and goes to prison. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't even get because like you know in that story, right? Like
Yep.
and here this kid like I hit someone with the chair and didn't get suspended. So self-defense. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. He saves Patrick. He has to go to detention, but that's about it. But now Patrick and Sam will talk to him because he's like won back their trust after the Mary Elizabeth ordeal. Patrick starts driving him around at night because Patrick doesn't want to be alone, and like they start drinking a lot. They go to all the places him and Brad would hook up at. Patrick brings them to like a park where men would meet anonymously, hook up. And like every night when Patrick drops Charlie back off at home, he like kisses and makes out with Charlie. And Charlie doesn't stop him because he
Yeah.
wants to be a good friend.
There's so many things about that is Like when
Like,
you think about Sam and like her kissing
yes,
and how he was like, she was like, I want you to kiss people you love. Like, I want that to be what you do. And then to find out that he's being an awful friend to Patrick, honestly, by,
awful. Yeah.
yeah, he's being an awful friend.
Hmm.
And honestly, that comes up with Sam where she kind of basically says, like, this way that you act is actually not being a good friend,
Hmm.
which real good for her. Great thing when we get there. But yeah, that just, it's bad. And like you mentioned it too, like Patrick like leaves Charlie alone in one of these like a secret hangout events in a park where men pick each other up.
Yeah.
And ends up meeting a local celebrity, like a news anchor, a sports anchor, or something like that, who like
Hmm.
kind of hits on Charlie
Yeah.
until, oh yeah, my brother is in college. And then I think the person kind of like,
Realizes he's a kid.
yeah, and then like it
Yeah.
comes like quickly the guy leaves.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which again, I mean, there's just things there that I don't even know we could get into about like older men and like gay, like and just
Yeah.
stuff there.
And like, besides Sam being the like person of Charlie's crush affection in that way, we don't hear any about anyone else he really has feelings for. So like we don't know, like we can't assume that Charlie is straight, and like because of the like weird blurred lines of Patrick kissing him and him letting him, it's unhealthy, but like it does add like some question, but it's not like it's also not important to the book. It's not important to Charlie's character arc. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like a side thought, I feel like, which is interesting to be a side thought, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean the thing about this like entire thing with him and Patrick too is that you see him progress, like you see Patrick progressively dive into more and more drinking. He tries to do poppers. I actually highlighted this that they do whippets, and that
Mm-hmm.
was something that I did not understand when I read the book as a freshman.
Me
And probably
neither.
didn't get it as, an incoming freshman, what it was when you see aerosol cans. And now that I'm older, I was just like, oh my God,
Hmm.
like
Yeah,
scary.
it's just, yeah, they're spiraling. Then we get towards the end of the year, right? All of his friends, like Mary Elizabeth, has slowly started to forgive him, slash, has someone else that she's Craig's friend. What's his name? Do you
Peter?
remember? Peter, yes, who like will debate with her and who isn't a pushover. Like she describes that like it will actually be in a mature relationship, right? So she's like found someone else. So like Charlie's fully forgiven by his friends, but all of his friends are seniors, so they're all like obsessed with applying to colleges, what's going to happen after graduation, prom, all these things that are so soon, so exciting, right? But so Charlie's getting all this like secondhand, like ecstatic events, but they're not his. So even though he is participating, like Bill has encouraged him to do, he is still a wallflower within the participation, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to prom. He is not graduating. He's not yet going to college. But
You
he has all this like emotion of that.
Yeah. You actually kind of see Bill, I feel like losing the plot a little bit with his like with Charlie and stuff. Like he isn't making him write anything. He
Mhm.
gave him The Stranger, which is not a book a 15-year-old would understand because I did existentialism and I got a B in my paper and I was like in my second year of college. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't understand. And then also, as I mentioned, Anne Rand, like
The
what are you
fountainhead.
thinking? It's
But
wild.
but Bill says, don't be a sponge, be a filter. So it makes it fine.
Yeah, be skeptical about this one. But then Charlie's like, I love this book. And I'm
I
like,
know. I was like, mm-mm. Charlie, you're gonna turn into a red flag. They're getting closer to graduation, and prom. Right before prom happens, so we find out via Peter, who told Bob, who's telling Charlie. But we find out that Craig has been cheating on Sam since the beginning with like multiple girls and like talks shit about her or behind her back. And Peter's been trying since finding this information out, has been trying to get Craig to admit this. And so at prom, Craig like rents out like a whole like little suite at a hotel for them all to hang out with and get drunk at. And Peter's like, if you don't tell her right now, I will. So Sam finds out about all this cheating. When Charlie's writing about this, he at the end of that entry, he talks about how he's like, I feel bad for Sam. All I want is for her to be happy. And I wish it's less of like, I want to be with her now. And he talks about, he's like, no, I just want her to be happy. And so I'm
Yeah, that
happy.
was like a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm happy that she's not with Craig, but I'm not happy that it happened. Right.
Mhm.
So it is less like, I feel like a lot of times in like teen books and teen movies, when this happens in the story, that the boy who's in Charlie's place
Yeah.
immediately is like, okay, now it's my turn, And so like, this is a good moment when Charlie is like, no, like that's not appropriate. Um, which I felt like was a good moment for him. All the teens, they go to prom. Charlie's not there because he's not a senior. And it's like towards the last days of school, his friends are about to graduate. He kind of has this nice moment with Bill. Bill's like, hey, we find out this is Bill's first year teaching and that he's with the program Teach for America, and I will have thoughts about that at the end. Um, but he's like, Charlie, you made my first year so good. I am sorry about giving you a few of these books because I was going through a breakup, and those are kind of books that I had in that moment, which like now gives a little bit of context to some of those books he gave Charlie. But then Bill's also like if you ever like in the coming years, I'm not sure if I'll be back this next year for teaching, but if you need someone, I'll be a friend for you. And then Charlie's like, you're the best teacher I ever had, like, and like they do have this like sweet like friendship moment at the end of the school year. Yeah, his brother is home from college, which is huge. His sister's about to graduate. They go to the graduation. His sister is valedictorian?
So, a salutatorian.
Salutatorian, right? Second. Yeah.
She got to be on something around the time of her abortion.
Oh, yeah.
Which
So
that's a fair reason to
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So they have graduation. All the family members are there. Charlie's dealing with his cousins just bullying him. And they have a party, but Charlie wants to go celebrate with Sam and Patrick and all of his senior friends, but his parents are like, you have to wait. And so he waits until late and he goes and meets up with them. And they're all like drunk and like talking about their high school experiences and all their memories and inside jokes. And Charlie's like, some of those jokes are not inside jokes anymore. They're just normal jokes. Like he's like reflecting on their relationship, his friendships he's had. We find out that Sam is leaving in a week because she got into a college that forces like an early like summer program. So suddenly, instead of a whole summer, Charlie only has one more week with Sam.
Yeah.
Did your school do the thing where like seniors graduated a week or two before everyone else ended school?
Ish. Usually it was like it always was that we graduated before school ended, and
Yeah.
to do with like the band plays and the choir does,
Yeah.
So, but then saying it was like a whole month. I was like, what? Like that is
It was so long.
Yeah.
I was just like maybe a week max.
Maybe a week. Yeah, exactly. It was like I graduated like on May like 29th, 30th, and then they were out of school like the next week.
Yeah, that's how we did ours too. So Charlie's stuck going to school and all his friends are not there. And he like tries to make a friend, but the guy is like, I know who you are, and then like leaves him. So Charlie's like back at the start of his freshman year alone, but now he could smoke. So
yeah, after he pulled an all-nighter.
I thought about pulling an all-nighter the other night, and then I was like, I haven't done that since I was 22. Why would I do that?
I have, unfortunately, in the last year, I did stay up until it was sun out and got a little bit of sleep. But I was in Vegas, so like, that's where you do it.
That's where you do it. That's different, I think, situation. He goes to Bill's house. I guess, yeah, when he's having that like really cute moment with Bill, he goes to Bill's house, meets Bill's girlfriend slash fiance. They have a dinner. It's just interesting to have a student to your house. Anyways, I'll save my Bill rant.
But
yeah, save the Bill thoughts. Yeah. It's right before Sam is leaving. The night before, they're having like a goodbye party with all the friends. Everyone leaves except for Charlie, but Sam's like, hey, come help me pack. Like, you're welcome to stay. So they're in her room kind of packing.
She says like it's sweet and everything, but it's like you're not even there sometimes.
Mm,
It's great that you can listen and be a shoulder to someone, but what about when someone doesn't need a shoulder? Like, what if they need the arms of someone or something like that? You can't just sit there and put everyone's lives ahead of your own and think that counts as love. You just can't. You have to do things. And that was another thing that like blew my mind um as a freshman was because like I grew up in a, where I mentioned it, like a divorced house, like there was
mm-hmm.
feelings, a lot of things that I personally would just tiptoe around. And so I was definitely more of a person who put my own things ahead of other people.
Yeah.
And so seeing it so point blank on a page
Yeah.
at the age of like, oh, like just because I can like go along with a person and they like that, that doesn't mean I'm actually adding anything. I'm not actually being myself at all.
Mm-hmm. Charlie is like, yeah, you're right. I didn't like Mary Elizabeth. I didn't like all this. I do like you. Like he like is able to express it to her, and not just think it to himself, right? Because sometimes he'll like think it to himself, but he won't believe it in his
Yeah, like when,
writing.
yeah, it's like you can come to Patrick's rescue and hurt two guys that are trying to hurt him. But what about when Patrick's hurting himself?
Mm-hmm.
You guys do want, when you went to the park and when he was kissing you, did you want him to kiss you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude, you're being a bad friend. Which I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it also like this whole talk is makes it the next scene.
Yeah.
It's 0 to 100 of like, whoa. But I mean, I
Yeah.
guess featured in.
Yeah. I mean, it's their last night and they're teenagers, right? So
I
like there is
mean,
some,
everything is set up, I guess.
yeah, there is some of that. But like, yeah, so they're making out and like touching each other. And when Sam like touches his genitals, he like freaks out. And she's like, "What's wrong? Did it hurt? What am I doing?" And he just says, "Oh, I just it felt good. I didn't know what was wrong." Um, but he freaks out and they like stop making out or anything. And he ends up wanting walking home instead of taking her off for a ride home. Sam describes him like looking like white as a sheet, like looking not good. And he's like, "No, I'm just gonna go." But she convinces him to stay. He falls asleep, and he has a dream. And he describes this dream of back one memory he's talked about briefly about when his Aunt Helen would babysit him and his siblings when his parents were out, that they were able to watch SNL and other TV shows late and they would fall asleep on the couch. So we've heard this a version of this memory before, but in this dream, they're watching TV and he wakes up from falling asleep in the dream. And his Aunt Helen is right. It's at this part we find out, right?
Yeah, doing what Sam was doing.
Yeah, but doing what Sam was doing. So this is when we find out like what truly happened to him was not just that his aunt had a tragic death, is that his aunt like molested and assaulted him all the time as a child.
Yeah,
And
like he says he has this dream, and when I read that, I thought it was immediately going to jump to that, but they actually don't even say it.
mm-mm.
Epilogue. So it's
Yeah,
like, is it a dream or is it not a dream? And the epilogue is like 5 pages, I
yeah.
think.
Hmm.
Like you and I were talking about it, we were like, all this stuff happens at the end, and then you're still like, people have read it who know it. They're like,
Yeah.
what's happening? And then you get the dream, and then
Hmm.
like you said earlier, he wakes up and
Yeah.
like his family find his like his family finds him naked
Yeah.
by himself.
They find him naked by himself and we in the epilogue he wakes up and he's hospitalized like almost 2 months. And he talks about how he Patrick came to visit him and his all his siblings came to visit him. And then he talks to a psychiatrist and he finally realizes why the psychiatrist kept asking those questions, and it was because the psychiatrist understood that he was probably assaulted by his Aunt Helen. But it's not here until like we the reader understand that Charlie now understands that truly happened. But the epilogue, like it covers again 2 months, and throughout this 2 months he comes to not only understanding what happened to him but like starting to like deal with that and like not just comprehend but like eventually like forgive his aunt almost within the 2 months, which like Charlie's a very bright person, but also that's a lot of trauma to process in 2 months.
Yeah.
Not that I don't think, like,
I mean, it was clearly an intensive treatment. I mean,
definitely.
and I don't even think it's necessarily as portrayed as presumed intensive in the movie.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's like 2 months. Like, and we know that when he was a kid, he was in treatment too for a
Hmm.
long time.
Yeah.
But he had clearly disassociated, buried his memories back then. And so
Hmm.
and now he's finally like realizing and actualizing how it's impacted his life now that he knows.
Yeah. Yeah. And he ends up describing his like thought process of this as being, if somebody else has it much worse, that doesn't change the fact that you have what you have, good and bad. And I think that's not a perfect statement, I think, but in the context of the book and in context of Charlie and what he's going through, especially the like wallflower-ness of everything, it does make a lot of sense because he's seen all these horrible things and he's like, that's so bad, that's so bad, that's so bad, never looking at the stuff that's happened to him. Right. So it's like, it does a really good job of putting the whole thing in context within Charlie's own narrative that he's portraying. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the thing is that like sex is all over this book, but so
Hmm.
is SA, coercion. I mean, we hear about Sam being like, essentially like his sister says that she was kind of like tossed around. Um,
Yeah.
Guys and had this like, this reputation that seem like Sam was doing something for her, like to feel better or like get
Hmm.
something. Everybody is making they're making decisions that are based off of like all these things that are happening around them, and it's usually some sort of like violence, honestly. So
Hmm.
Patrick, of course, with Brad, Sam, the couple, the sister.
It's so much and it just like hits you so fast at the end. Like it just is constantly building. And like the actual ending after all these like after Charlie dealing with this, Sam comes back for like a week or so. Sam, Patrick, and Charlie go driving through the tunnels, and they have he has another moment of standing in the tunnel. He says, I was really there, and that was enough to make me feel infinite. So like he has another one of those moments. That's how it ends. And I love because like this, I mean, it's not necessarily a three-act structure kind of book, right? Plot-wise, because the ending has all the like drama, like with a capital D, right? But it's just like, yeah, I like that it does that. Because if it was more classically three-act structure, I feel like it wouldn't have been as powerful because it's more realistic of how people deal with traumas like that. It's not like it makes sense. I'm going to deal with this much and then this much and then this. You know what I mean? It's like I think it's more realistic. Supposedly, I don't know if this is true. I need to do more research on this. I was looking again on a Reddit thread of this book. Apparently a lot of people don't like the epilogue.
Really? I wonder if people are, is it like the epilogue, or is it like in this edition, there's a letter from Charlie from 2012 that is
Oh, maybe it's that.
unhelpful to the story. I mean, the only thing you really glean from it, honestly, is that the person who got the letters wrote him back.
Oh.
Yeah. That's
So
like,
yeah, that must be what they're talking about
I would just, that
because
makes a lot of sense
that
because I
makes
was
way more
like,
sense because the
yeah,
redditor kept saying epilogue and then letter, but it didn't say the date.
mm,
Because like every entry is a letter, so I was
yeah,
like, "What do you
exactly.
mean?"
Yeah, no, there's
That
a,
makes way more sense. Okay, because I was like, at first they were saying that, and I was like, the epilogue is so important. What do you mean it shouldn't be there?
is the actual expose of like
Ex-
everything that you got the,
Exactly, exactly. And so, okay, that makes my brain feel better.
yeah, yeah, that's so strange.
Yeah,
Yeah. So here's what you want to get into theories, or do
go
you
for
like,
it.
okay. One theory I have is that I think that more nowadays you'll see people describe the book as written about from someone's like perspective through like PTSD.
Mhm.
But now that I'm like a lot more educated on and like there's been more advances in like the DSM and stuff, I kind of see Charlie having CTPSD, which is like complex. It's something that you develop when you're a child. And
Mhm.
it's a little bit different than regular. PTSD. And so when we hear him, I'm crying about this, I'm crying about that, that kind of seemed like a really, really good hallmark
Mm-hmm.
of how he filtered his feelings and stuff, because we've chat about it throughout the entire story of like nobody like tells him really to like man up. He's
Mm-hmm.
not like constantly trying to hype himself until like you're not gonna cry today. Like it just becomes like a point where he's trying to rationalize all the crying.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that is like that was kind of where I came from on his like disassociation, the way he reacts to things and like rationalizes and then comes to the end of like, this is why I have blackouts. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is what I like put so deep far that, this is how I remember it now. Or
Mm-hmm.
like it's had to happen for me to remember it.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And I think that makes a lot of like more sense because like it's not just that he's dealing with depression, it is more of the CPTSD stuff that now we know more about. I have a friend who loves this book and I was messaging him being like back from college because he was in my English classes and he always brought up this book all the time. Um so much so that I had a professor be like, you can't bring this book up every class. It can be every other class. But I was messaging him, and my friend is autistic, and I was reading this, and I was like, "What are your thoughts on Charlie besides the PTSD stuff?" And just because I didn't want to like say like I'm reading Charlie as being on the spectrum because like I'm not a doctor, I'm not autistic. That's not my like I wanted to be
Yeah.
sensitive, and my friend was like, "Oh." Charlie helped me realize that I was autistic. And I
I
was like,
didn't know if it would be comfortable to get into. I felt
"Mhm,
more confident in the CTPSC discussion.
absolutely.
Honestly, I actually have a note, several
Hmm.
notes in here. I put AC as like autistic coded,
Hmm.
because there's like a moment right from the beginning that makes you think like the way that you're perceiving and like cataloging like
Hmm.
your memories and like the way that you're doing this. There's a lot of moments throughout this book that I literally wrote like AC because I was like, this seems very autistic coded. And like there is a lot of people who say that it's very hard to distinguish, and sometimes people just have both
Yeah.
on those.
Hmm.
And so I would definitely say that he is very autistic coded. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely got that too. I just like I wanted to talk to my friend first, who one
I
is a
know.
fan
I
of the
was
book
like,
and
I
two is
want to talk about
autistic.
it, but
So like I'm like also I'm gonna be sensitive about the topic
yeah.
because yeah.
Yeah.
So that is maybe a theory and I think it's something
It's
to
a
talk about.
possibility that I see now that we like have so much more information, and
Hmm.
whether or not he like the author meant to or like came
Yeah.
from that immediate
He might have
perspective.
not meant
Like,
to, but
1999, not many people knew like that
hmm,
there was a very, very narrow description. And so he did
definitely.
end up creating a character that is rationalizing things in such a like devoid of emotion way,
Hmm.
sometimes, or like it's only emotion. And
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely read this book and was like, this is a person who has PTSD, probably CTPSD, and is definitely autistic coded.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad I wasn't alone in thinking those
Yeah,
thoughts for sure.
yeah, it's just okay. I'm glad too, because I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I should talk about it, and you were feeling the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, do you okay, before I go to my Bill thoughts, here are the books that Bill that either Bill gave to Charlie or were mentioned in general. So To Kill a Mockingbird, This Side of Paradise, Peter Pan, what The Mayor of Castro Street, some book by Annie Rice, The Catcher in the Rye, Walden, what On the Road, Naked Lunch, a poetry by E. Cummings, Hamlet, The Stranger, The Fountainhead, The Great Gatsby, and A Separate Piece by John Knowles. And what a male English
I
coded teacher
know.
list.
Yeah, exactly. This is like I know so many guys that were like, if you ask them what is like their like what's a
Mhm,
book by a book that you like, they're
mhm,
gonna say To Kill a Mockingbird. And
mhm.
it's like, well, you read that book when you were like a sophomore in high
Yeah,
school.
exactly. Hmm. Anyways, so here are my Bill thoughts. I think one, Teachers for America is a problematic organization in general. So there's my first like yellow flag about Bill. Two, male English teachers. There's two versions. There's a version that they are great English teachers and they were born to teach, and the other version is that they were philosophy or lit majors that didn't know what to do with their life. as someone who was an English major who didn't know what to do with their life, I can say that because it's part of my experience. Um, um, Bill, I think his relationship with Charlie is okay for a lot of it. It's fine to have conversations with your students about books and give them challenging things. I think Bill crosses the line and gives them inappropriate books that Charlie's not ready for. And also him inviting Charlie over to his house, even though his girlfriend or fiance was there. So like it wasn't like
Someone.
capital R red flag. It is a red flag. I think Bill's an important character though throughout it. If I was a teacher who taught a Bill school, I would either be telling someone, because teachers don't hide. There's so much gossip between teachers.
Sure.
So much gossip. I would either be like, hey, keep an eye on this guy, or I would tell Charlie as a student, be like, hey, don't. Like, that's something I would have done.
Yeah.
Just from the vibes of Bill.
He definitely, like you see, as the book gets closer to the end, you definitely see him feeling his guilt for inserting himself,
Absolutely.
his version of himself into Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it adds to why he asked him to come over to be like, you're special. Like, you
Yeah.
realize you, like,
Yeah.
and like, I will be there for you. And it's good to know that, like, Bill is not trying to like hold on to Charlie, especially when he's like, oh my gosh, like I did end up giving you books that I really shouldn't have, and I'm not going to write essays on these books because I shouldn't have given them to you.
Yeah. So I don't have that many fun facts about this book because fun facts are usually for the movies, but Charlie does write 52 letters. And I looked up, someone did the math. I was on Reddit, shout out, to the math about the stamps, the cost of stamps at the dates the letters were written within the book. So not 99, but 92. And the 52 letters throughout the year would have costed Charlie of 92's money, so not including inflation, $15.08 to mail all those letters. But with inflation, I don't know what that would be because I'm not a mathematician.
It's gotta be like 30. Like,
yeah, exactly. I'm like $30 probably.
Yeah.
Which is like not terrible.
I don't work where I need to mail things anymore. I used to know the current cost of a stamp.
I don't know. I just get like a page of stamps at Christmas and then call it good for the year. Anyways, I thought that was at least interesting though. We already talked a bit how Chbosky, like, this is like a semi-autobiographical. That word's so hard.
It's a hard word to say.
Autobiographical. Oh my goodness. So that Charlie's inspired by a lot of experiences that Stephen Chbosky went through, but also Sam and Patrick are like combinations of people that he grew up with. Sam represented all the like girls he had crushes on, like either like not just like romantic crushes, but like fashion, culture, music crushes on. And then Patrick is inspired by all his friends who were forced to be closeted throughout high school, but had moments like Patrick did to express themselves, like at Rocky Horror. So like those two are explicitly inspired by people in his life. Chbosky, I did not realize this till I was looking this up. He wrote the script for the Rent musical movie.
Oh.
Yeah, he wrote this, so like the adaptation to the movie. He wrote that script. He wrote and directed the 2012 Perks movie. I did not realize.
I did not know that he was director. I remember when I read that he was the director, I was like, oh.
Yeah. He wrote the 2017 Beauty and the Beast script, the Disney live action with Emma Stone.
Emma Watson.
Sorry, that's what I meant.
Huge. He's an Emma Watson fan.
He also wrote and directed Wonder and the movie adaptation of Wonder, and then he directed the Dear Evan Hansen movie.
I did see that. I never watched the movie. I saw you directed it.
Same.
I saw how old Ben Platt looked, and I was like, I'm good. I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
He's only written one other book, which is a 2019 thriller called Imaginary Friend, and it has no connection to anything of Perks. Yeah, and he's also originally from Pittsburgh, so a lot of the like geographical things are like from his own life. So those are the quote fun facts.
So in the 20th anniversary, they actually have like questions for topics and for discussion. And there's one question here that I want to ask you.
Okay.
Who was Charlie's worst influence?
Worst influence?
Yeah.
I mean, besides his Aunt Helen.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure. I was like, isn't that
That,
obvious?
you know,
Okay, of the characters he meets throughout the
in
book, Bob, right?
yeah, I mean,
I think it's
I
Bob.
think it has to be. I mean, giving so many drugs
He's
to
just enabling
yeah,
recklessly,
yeah.
right? I think it has to be Bob. I don't think Patrick's not a bad influence. I feel like their relationship's pretty even as far as bad things happening on both
If anything,
sides.
Harley's a bad influence for Patrick.
Yeah. I don't think Sam's quite a bad influence. I think it evens out at the end.
Yeah.
I think it's complicated. Mary Beth, I think we can't include as an influence because Charlie's just so anti Mary Beth.
Yeah, he just like
So
it's
like,
really not Sam's
yeah, I guess
or
it's between Bill and Bob,
yeah.
and I think it has to be Bob.
I agree.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts before we wrap up?
I mean, I guess I could just talk about why this book was like helpful for
Oh
me.
yeah,
Just
sure.
kind of alluded to it. So
Hmm.
I will say that without getting like too deep into the story, that when I was a freshman in high school, I was really struggling with insomnia. And I was typically only getting like something like 3 hours of sleep a night. And I had unfortunately struggled and experienced some things that are in this book that happened in my eighth grade year. And reading this book when I did, and like seeing some of my own experiences and like people being able to like go through it and like be better, like feel better when I don't during it was like super huge for me. But the letter aspect of this was so big because it actually inspired me to write myself.
Hmm.
And I actually, it ended up helping me be able to sleep. Actually, this book, learning how to like, I wrote a story, like I just
Hmm.
wrote my in like notebooks. Like I just
Yeah.
like wrote I have like three notebooks of the story. It's probably bad. But it was like a thing that actually helped me get back on track and be able to sleep. And this book, just like the themes and all that, it was just very like the right time. And then when the movie
Hmm.
came out, it was also like a really nice good time because there was some stuff in this book that also happened to me around that time. And so I just think that this is such an important book. I was so worried when I read it again, I wouldn't like it for some
Me
reason.
too. I was
I
worried.
know. I still love it the same way, honestly. And now I have way more perspective on who on these things. And yeah, if you read this book in high school or like in a bit like in your college years and it's been
Hmm.
a while, read this because you're
It's
gonna
so worth it.
it's so worth it. I'm gonna give it like 5 stars on Storygraph.
Absolutely. Like it was already sitting 5 stars from the first time I like entered it in Goodreads in 2012 or 13, but like those reviews don't count because
10 years.
exactly. But like this is so I like loved reading it. I was hesitant at first reading. I started it like early January, reading it before bed, and I was like, this topic is not a before bed book for my brain.
Sure.
It's because my brain is very influenced by what it reads or watches right before
Oh
bed,
yeah.
and I have wild
I-
ass dreams. um I can't even have ice cream that late anymore without having weird dreams.
Wow.
The sugar messes my dreams up. It's really sad.
That is sad.
Yeah, anyways, so I was like, okay, so I started reading it in the afternoons, and I just like this week, I just like got so into it. Like I did the thing, like there's memes on TikTok and stuff where it's like partner yells at their partner about a book review that they've never read. And I was like, me and Isaac, because Isaac has never read this and he has never watched the movie. And
You
I was
should
like,
read the book and then listen to our podcast on it.
I know that's what I was gonna tell. I told him I was like, well, I'm gonna have to watch the movie for the podcast, but you can't watch it with me because you haven't read the book.
And he should.
So
I mean, I know he's
he'll love this book. So, like, here's the thing. I think this book is so good and I'm glad it exists. I think it helps so many people, but I think there's also people that should not read it
yes,
at that age.
agreed. This
You know what I
is
mean?
I know that this is marketed towards young adults, but I don't know it. I mean, obviously, because I had life experiences that this
Yeah.
was okay for me to read.
Hmm.
But I don't think that if I had those experiences and knew what it was like to have them, that that would have been a good
Yeah.
book.
Like me at 18, not understanding half the stuff that went on in this book because I didn't have any references to it besides pop culture.
Yeah.
So now reading it, now that I've lived some life. Sounds
Yeah.
like a weird phrase to say. I'm 30 years old. I've lived some life.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it definitely like it's one of the books that like I'm excited to reread it again in the future. I don't know
Yeah.
when that will be. Who
Yeah.
knows?
I'm giving this copy to Tori and I'm excited
Nice.
like for them to read it and then like
That's
listen
so
back.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I try to read 50 books a year and excited that this was, I think, book 7.
it was my book 7 too.
Oh, lucky.
That is
That's funny.
wild.
It's
That is
meant to.
wild. Thank you everyone for listening. Make sure you're following the podcast on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast. The schedule for season 2 should be up by now. Make sure you're following the Instagrams where all the information is put out. Also, our website, readthebookfirst.buzzsprout.com. Subscribe, rate 5 stars. If you don't want to rate 5 stars, you don't have to rate us. Only accept 5-star ratings, please. We have 13 5-star reviews right now, and I want it to be 15. It's my goal. Anyways, next week we'll be watching the movie, the 2012 movie. So make sure you watch that in preparation. And don't forget, read the book first.